Welcome to the Primal Show with Gary Collins, former FDA investigator and author of the Primal Power Method, and myself, Heath Squier, CEO of Julian Bakery. Gary has written numerous books here, and today we wanted to talk a little bit about his Off the Grid project, which he is just wrapping up. And he's made some incredible videos. You guys got to check out. We'll put some links into this video at the bottom of the page in the description area. Gary, tell us about what you have been doing up in Washington.
Yeah, well, it all started several years ago. I started looking for a remote piece of land, but anyone who's done this it's tough. A lot of the good land is bought and it's expensive. I'm an average guy. I don't come from millionaires. I grew up very poor, first kid to graduate from college. So I'm doing this with modest means. And I found 20 acres up in Northeast Washington that I like that area. I had explored it for years, and I traveled the whole country trying to figure out where I wanted to do this. So to let people understand that it's not a simple process where you just go out, buy land, and just put a cabin up. It takes a lot of research and figuring out where you want to live. And I explored that part, and that's the part of the country I fell in love with. So that's where I explored, and I spent multiple trips going up there and looking around, and I got lucky. I found a lot that was perfect for what I wanted to do, but it's raw, and I always wanted to do it in a sense. Everyone has different standards. My standard was I wanted a view of mountains and a lake. I didn't have to be on it or in my yard, but I wanted to see it. I was going for views. That's what my whole point was. I wanted relaxing views. I wanted kind of this amazing property where I could go relax, where I could hunt, fish, have a shooting range, which I do have. I built a little shooting range.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it was just basically to kind of simplify my life, to get away. I think that today's life, and I spent darn near 20 years in the government and traveling and living a life that I just finally kind of had enough. And so I decided to do this project for me first, but I didn't realize how unique it was. I've been told by multiple people, even in the area I'm at where I'm remote, that I'm doing this very differently than most people do, because what I'm doing is I'm not. Most people think of, they watch the Alaskan shows and they think you just cut down trees and put up a cabin and there you go. It's much more complicated than that now. There's a lot of regulations. You can't get away with just throwing structures up and totally living off the grid. You can't finance also, and that's another thing that I realized, is if you don't have power run to the property off a utility company, no bank will finance you. There's some that will do off the grid financing, but not very many, and it's very difficult to do. So you have to pay out of your pocket. So I basically moved up there. I bought the property last year. I went up in May, and I just got back 2 days ago. I'm back in Southern California, and I'm transitioning. This is going to take a couple years for the full transition. So I got up there, and I put in the well. We're finishing that off. We actually finished that off yesterday, got the pump in. It's a fully functioning well.
Awesome.
Had to drill 520 feet. And
Wow.
anyone who knows wells, and that's a very important part of, if you're going to do this is a step that everyone misses. You have to have water.
Sure.
Without water, you've got nothing.
Right.
And I knew in the area, I knew there was water. How deep was I going to have to go? That was the issue. I was surrounded by lakes. We knew there was a water table. We knew it was there. We just didn't know. And, that's about $25,000 just to drill a well.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't even, put a foundation in, and I've probably spent close to $50,000. So people have to understand it's very expensive too. I'm going to do it for less than it costs to buy a condo in a real crappy neighborhood in Southern California.
Sure.
But I have to do it with cash. So there's steps to it, and I've learned a lot. I spent 4 months of, we're finishing up the septic as far as getting approved, because you have to get permits for all this. People think that you can just dig a trench in the ground and start pooping in it. Well, no, there's environmental laws. You have to get things approved, and I'm doing it uniquely too, is I'm doing it all permitted. So when I'm done with this property, it's going to be owner occupancy. I'll get a certificate. And that's huge because a lot of people have done this, and I actually looked at lots like this, is they build a structure non-permitted, they put in a non-permitted septic system, they may even drill a well, they may even have running water or a creek running through the property. You're doing yourself a huge disservice because you're spending all this money and you're never getting it back. Because if you sell that property, someone has to go on there, and you can't permit something after it's done. You can, but you have to rip out all the walls. They have to have everything inspected. It's really time consuming, and usually the structures are substandard because the people who built them didn't have, they weren't contractors or construction people. And basically you lose money because now you got to sell the lot with this infrastructure on it that has to be all torn back out.
Oh man.
Yeah, and that's one lesson I learned. So I've been told that my property will probably be worth twice what I put into it because I'm doing it right. Yeah. So I think if you're going to go off the grid, being smart is looking at it as an investment too. I mean, let's be realistic in life. You just don't want to throw money away. I mean, yeah, you want to live off the grid and you want to have this simple lifestyle, but what happens if something happens? What happens if, I don't know, you have a major health condition, you have a stroke, or, you have a major injury? Well, guess what? You need to get rid of that property. If you did everything non-code, you're going to have a hard time selling it. Right. And you're not going to make any money. Right. So it's always about planning too. And I think I think people realize one of my strong points is I'm a planner. I'm an organization guy. So I went into this project not willy-nilly, and I had a plan, and it's going to take several years. I thought I could speed it up and get it done in 12 to 18 months. It ain't going to happen. There's a lot to it. And I'm not building a very big place. I'm only building a 800 square foot house, and that was bigger than I intended in the beginning. And people go, oh my God, how are you going to live in such a small place? Well, I live in a 475 square foot place right now. I downsized. I've already gone through the evolution of downsizing and simplifying my life. It's been stages. And that's what I try and emphasize, and I'm going to write a book about this whole process, and I've written blog posts on how to simplify your life on primalpowermethod.com. I have a great article. It's actually been published in a couple other places about how to kind of take the steps and how to do it. And I think that's what I'm trying to do. Is everything I do, I try and teach. I try and make it a learnable moment.
Well, I think that's it goes a long ways. I mean, like everything you do is about simplification. From your books that you write to the way of living and the way of eating. So, I mean, I think it's definitely transparent in terms of you practice what you preach, and I think your videos are great. It's gorgeous. I saw the land up there and your views. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing on the property, and I definitely commend you for doing that because it's obviously something that's really hard. And I don't think anybody could accuse you of being lazy. So,
no, and that's what I got with that last video we did on skinny shaming. Why I was offended by some of the comments people said of us fat shaming people and body shaming. I've worked incredibly hard in my life to accomplish the things I've accomplished, and to belittle it and say that turn the tables is insulting. And I think people can see that I'm a hard worker and I'm not narcissistic. This isn't for me. Everything I do, I try and help other people to learn from what I'm doing. And to think that I just came up with this willy-nilly and all of a sudden I just went off the grid and I'm going to homestead, which some people have done. Won't talk about that. This has been a plan for 7-8 years now. And I've slowly put the pieces in place financially and in my lifestyle and everything I've done leading up to this point. It wasn't something that I just did. I've built a couple houses in the past, not me personally. I've assisted in certain areas. I've remodeled houses. I've gutted houses. I've bought land before. So I kind of had a background into what I was doing. It was preparing for the final event, I guess would say, not knowing what I was getting myself into. So that's what I mean. I have, even with the experience I have doing these things, it's always different for everyone if you're going to do this because your land's going to be in a different place. You're going to have different weather. You're going to have different types of architecture, structure. There's so many variables that I can give you. It's just like the paleo diet. I could give you a template, but you have to personalize it to your surroundings, what you're going through, what you want. This is what I wanted. So the land that you pick out could be very different from the land I picked.
Yeah.
And once you get that land, you have to make the changes and adapt to that land. You may have power close. I did not have power close. It was going to cost me close to $100,000 to run power. Why would I do that? And I wanted to go solar and wind anyway, but that just reinforced what I was doing, that that wasn't an option. But it makes it harder because, again, I have to use all my financial resources in order to do it. But there are ways to finance it at the tail end, which I'll talk about in future videos, the financial aspects and how I'm doing things. Because that's a whole nother thing. If you don't have your financial life in check, you're not going to live off the grid. I'll tell you that right now. If you don't have a good, solid plan, and you have to be debt free. I'm debt free. You cannot, if you have debts and you have payments on things and trying to do this, it's just not a good idea. I mean, I think that's why I'm talking about the planning in this, and why I'm going to write another book. It won't be 400 pages, be another 150-page book, very short, simple, concise. And the videos, I mean, I've gotten such good feedback off the videos.
Awesome.
Because what they see, that's real. I mean, I'm showing them everything that's going on. I mean, we had to tow the drilling rig up to the drilling side with a dozer because it's so remote, and we had to build the road to get to that point, and the drilling rig still got stuck, but I had a backup plan knowing that I may have to tow that thing up there. And we did. I mean, the video is incredible to see the size of this rig. I don't even know. I don't even know how many tons this rig. It was over 50 tons, the weight of this drilling rig.
Awesome.
And to see, you know, a dozer dragging this thing up to the site, that was part of the planning I'm talking about.
Right.
That's a big deal. you know, you better have a plan. If you try and do this willy-nilly, it's going to bite you in the butt, and you're going to waste some money and time. And there's going to be things that pop up that have already popped up for me. You have to be able to adapt and move. You know, I lived out of a hotel for like 3 weeks before I figured out my plan. And I had to keep my place back in Southern California because I didn't know. You know, it was completely uncharted.
Well, I think it speaks volumes that you were planning this for 7-8 years, ahead of time. So you knew what you were getting into ahead of time, and you were kind of prepared for anything, which is the way people should, anything that you do, you should go in completely prepared. So, but we're going to post a bunch of links. We want to definitely encourage everybody to click over to all the different videos. He's got quite a few of them. And if any of you have questions, make sure to email Gary at gary@theprimalshow.com or myself at heath@theprimalshow.com. I think it's awesome what Gary's doing on his Off the Grid project. And we want to thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and you stay up to date with all our most recent videos. And we want to thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, and one last thing, this will be going on for years, guys. So this is going to be evolving. You'll see many more videos, and you'll get to see the whole evolution as I go through the entire process. So I'm going to document the entire thing.
All right. Awesome, Gary. We'll definitely take a look at all your upcoming videos. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.